16th, 2021, 12:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name's Dave McRae, coming to you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. And this is episode 152 of McRae Live. And today I wanted to just I saw this article in Rolling Stone and I thought, wow, I didn't know. This was from earlier this week, I guess, yesterday, the day before, something like that. Ronald Defeo Jr. has passed away at the age of 69. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking to yourself, who the fuck is Ronald Defeo Jr.? And you call yourself a horror fan. Get out! Get out! No, I mean, most of us probably already know. But some may not. Well, Ronald Defeo Jr. is the guy that was not only convicted of murdering his entire family, he did murder his entire family in what became known as the Amityville Horror House. Now, obviously, the Amityville Horror movie in 1979, starring Margot Kidder and James Brolin, was not... It was based on the Lutz's story, which was the family of George and Kathy Lutz that moved into the house the following year. And, you know, they did sort of obviously tie in the murders that happened in 1974. 74, man, kind of strange. Black Christmas, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, those two movies came out. DeFeo murdered his whole family, you know, whatever. But that's who he was. He was the guy that wanted to plead insanity, was, you know, eventually said that the voices made him do it and all this kind of stuff. And you got to do some deep dive, some rabbit holes into, you know, whether or not you buy into that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, he did murder his whole family. And, you know, it was sort of the catalyst that began this, you know, Amityville horror story, so to speak. And George and Kathy Lutz, of course, was the family that moved in a year later. The house would not sell because of the murders. And we're not talking just about, like, you know, a murder. We're talking about, I think, 6 people were murdered. I think it was his mother and father for sure. I think his 2 sisters and maybe 1 brother. So maybe it was 5. It'll mention it in the article, I'm sure. But crazy stuff. And he was obviously tried and convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Now, funny enough, I believe he was up for parole this year. Potentially. Now, usually when you are somebody like a Defeo Jr. or a Charles Manson, or, you know, you can be up for parole. I mean, Manson was up many times, and I think so, and always shut down. So the probability that Defeo would have been released from prison this year is highly unlikely, as far as I know. But you never know. Crazier things have happened in the justice system. So anyway, I wanted to move over and read this article. Hopefully there won't be any mic popping from this screen, but I'm sure the chat will let me know. And if there is, well, I'll just have to go back and, you know, whatever. And to the other screen. But anyway, so this is the headline. This article comes from Rolling Stone magazine. This is from just the other day, I believe. Where are we here? March 16th. So just a couple of days ago. March 16th. Ronald Defeo. Was it March 16th? I think it was. Yeah, March 16th. Ronald Defeo, killer who inspired the Amityville horror, dead at 69. Now, obviously, it's Ronald Defeo Jr. because his father was Ronald Defeo Sr. So Defeo confessed to murdering 6, so I was right, 6 family members at their Long Island home in 1974. Crazy. What are they saying here? And of course, there's a picture of Ronald Defeo Jr. Now, one thing that is kind of creepy. Now, I'll talk a bit about this in a second when it comes to my thoughts on the Amityville horror. But one thing that is kind of creepy, and it doesn't mean anything. Of course, you have people go, it means something. It doesn't, no. But it's at the very least quite a coinkydink. One thing that is kind of creepy is George and Kathy Lutz, okay, who moved into the house the following year, I believe. George, the real George Lutz, not James Brolin. George Lutz looked remarkably like Ronald Defeo Jr. I'm not kidding. When you bring up Ronald Defeo Jr., do a quick Google search of Ronald Defeo Jr. and George Lutz, and it's like, like that's kind of creepy. It is kind of creepy. It is kind of creepy. Just saying. Yeah. So anyway, this is him, obviously, and he's dead now. So let's read this article. It comes to us from Rolling Stone, but everybody around the online has picked it up. Ronald Defeo Jr., we'll say, because it is. I don't know why they're just saying Ronald Defeo. But anyway, the convicted murderer who killed 6 family members and inspired the ever-growing Amityville horror franchise died Friday. I never understand why. I mean, I get it. It's just loose. But especially in journalism, I don't understand why you would put Amityville in quotes. Folks. Quotes means it's like, don't put it in double quotes. Put it in single quotes if you want to emphasize, or italicized if you want to emphasize something. Never put it in. I mean, you can. I'm being a nitpicker here. You can. There is a grammatical way to make it work. But I just, when you put something in quotes, generally you're saying that it's not. Yeah, anyway. The ever-growing Amityville horror franchise died Friday, March 12th. The New York Times reports. He was 69. Defeo died in a hospital in Albany, New York. The New York State Department of Correction and Community Supervision confirmed. He had been serving a sentence of 25 years to life at the Sullivan Correctional Facility in Fallsburg, New York, and had been taken to the hospital on February the 2nd. A case of death has not yet been announced. It was the demons! The demons! No, I don't know. But will be determined by the Albany County coroner. Okay. In 1974, Defeo used a rifle to kill his father, Ronald Defeo Sr., his mother, Louise, his 2 sisters, Dawn and Allison, and his 2 brothers. I thought it was just one brother. And his 2 brothers, Mark and John Matthew. Wow. All 6 victims were found in their beds at the family home in Amityville, a town on the south shore of Long Island. Now, I've never been there, but I know some of you have. On November 13th, 1974. A year later, Defeo was convicted on 6 counts of second-degree murder after confessing to the killings. The case went on to inspire an array of books and... Whoa. There must be an ad that popped up there somewhere. The case went on to inspire an array of books and movies, starting with Jay Anson's 1977 book, The Amityville Horror, which was followed in 1979 by Stuart Rosenberg's film of the same name. Of course, most of us have seen the 1979 film. It's a classic in the genre for sure. Definitely a terrific quote-unquote haunted house film, if you want to call it that. See, that's the correct way of using quotes. But nonetheless... Excuse me, thirsty. But nonetheless, a pretty good movie. Again, dated 1979, James Brolin, Margot Kidder. But it's got some really good stuff in it. And it's creepy. If the thing keeps moving, because I think Rolling Stone's got a shitload of ads that keep changing and popping up somewhere further up the page. Anyway, of the same name. Along with delving into the horrors of the Defeo murders, many of these books and films have also drawn on the story of the Lutzes, the family that moved into the Defeo's old house and left after just 28 days, claiming the house was haunted. Come on, Rolling Stone. Do you really need all these ads? Over 4 decades and countless adaptations later, the Amityville story retains a certain allure. Not to mention, it's essentially an unofficial franchise that's copyright free, as Amityville is a real town, and both the murders and the Lutz's alleged haunting are considered historical events. Oh my God. Standards, people, standards. And thus free from intellectual property claims. In 2020 alone, 4 different Amityville-related projects were released, though most of them admittedly were low-budget direct-to-video affairs, like the horror comedy The Amityville Vibrator. Has anybody seen The Amityville Vibrator? I don't know. Not something I'm going to be watching anytime soon. I've never even heard of this. Defeo was born into a generally well-to-do and religious family, working with his father at a car dealership in Brooklyn. Defeo's relationship with his father, however, was reportedly strained, and the younger Defeo also had a reputation for using drugs, drinking, and fighting. Following the murders, Defeo reportedly went to a bar near his home and proclaimed his parents had been shot, while he also reported the deaths to the police himself. After his confession, Defeo's 6-week trial focused primarily on why he carried out the murders, with Defeo's court-appointed lawyer, William Weber, mounting an insanity defense. In 1992, however, Defeo claimed Weber had pursued the insanity defense against his wishes, and he'd done so to potentially drum up interest in the possible book or film deals. Quote, William Weber gave me no choice, Defeo told The Times. He told me I had to do this. He told me there would be a lot of money from book rights and a movie. He would have me out in a couple of years. And I would come into all that money. The whole thing was a con except for the crime, end quote. And I believe that's where the article ends. Yes, indeedy, that is where the article ends. And I remember hearing things about that. Yeah, Defeo, I remember that. The story of Ronald Defeo Jr. is a very interesting one. And of course, whether he, I don't know, these things can be so sensationalized. The probability that he heard voices in his head, and that's what caused him to kill, obviously it's very low. There are some strange circumstances around it. I can understand when you read up on Defeo Jr. and you read up on his relationship with his family and with the father, especially the father. He had a very strained, tumultuous relationship with his father. There are a lot of people out there that have strained relationships with their father and don't go off and murder their father. So, to get from having a horrific relationship with your father to murdering your father is, there's got to be a few screws loose somewhere. There's got to be information that, do you know what I mean? Having said that, murdering your entire family is interesting because there's always been people that have thought, well, I could understand taking it's a shotgun or a rifle or whatever he had, like a gun that's going to make a fair amount of noise in a home at 3:00 in the morning. To murder everybody, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and admittedly, I haven't read up on this in a few years here, so I'm just going by memory. I believe everybody was found in their beds. So the parents, the 2 sisters, and the 2 brothers, I believe everybody was found in their beds. So it's not like, the parents were found in their beds and one of the brothers was found, in the hallway or, do you know what I mean? They were all found in their beds. So and of course the conclusion was they were all killed in their sleep. Well, I mean, there's been the speculation of would not have one of the kids, if the parents were shot first, would not one of the girls or the boys hear this, get up to investigate? If the boys were shot first, would the parent not get up to it? It seems a little strange. Now, again, that doesn't mean we weren't there. It doesn't. Maybe they all did hear it and cowered in their beds, afraid. I mean, that's entirely possible as well. But it is a little strange. It's crazy to think that they were all found in their beds. As far as my memory goes, I believe that is the case. There's been speculation as well that he had help. And that's how he was able to murder, 6 people in cold blood in their beds. Somebody was shooting somebody down the hall. Somebody was, you know what I mean? Which is possible. I can't remember if they determined whether, I think they were all shot with the same gun. I think they determined that as well. So that's something that's a little strange. There's a lot of strangeness around this. And then of course but people have to remember that I stand to be corrected. It's been a number of years since I've read up on it, but I don't think Defeo was out of the gate admitting that it was voices that made him do it and he heard these crazy voices. I don't think that's what was going on there. That came much later. So, this idea that the Lutz family and even George and Kathy Lutz, even they themselves say that a lot of what you see in the movie never happened. The walls bleeding, the floorboards, that's Hollywood doing what they do. They need to sensationalize it for the sake of entertainment, right? They take certain creative liberties and, are the Lutzes telling the truth? I don't know, man. I mean, look, if you're a believer in ghosts and you're a believer in demons, then you're more naturally to just believe them. Do you know what I mean? You don't need evidence because you're already a full-on believer. I believe ghosts are real. Yep, they're real. Demons are real. Yep. Yep, all real. Well, then if that's your mindset, if that's your mind frame, then you are likely to just believe it. You're likely to believe any story, right? If you're on the other side of the coin and you are a complete cynic, not even skeptic, okay? Because it's good to be skeptical. I often say it's good to be skeptical because if you're not skeptical, you're gullible. Everybody should be skeptical. Everybody should be looking for some sort of, at the very least, circumstantial evidence. Do you know what I'm saying? But you do have cynics on the other side of the coin that make their life all about proving things don't exist. And then you'll have them, which are like, no. Okay, and those are two completely opposite ends of the spectrum, right? You have the believers that will believe anything without a shred of evidence, and then you'll have the deniers that will deny everything despite maybe some evidence or something, But then you have people like me and maybe you. I don't know. I'm not a believer because of some of the things that I've experienced in my life. I do believe that there is enough, at the very least, circumstantial evidence to point to some sort of something after death. I don't look at it from a religious perspective because I'm not religious. I'm not Christian. So if you were to go back in my family tree, yes, but in terms of being a Christian, practicing going to church, I don't do that. I'm not a religious person. So I don't follow the same sort of ideology that, heaven, hell kind of, but I do, based on my experience, I do believe that there could be something survives the process of death. I don't know what that something is, where consciousness goes and all that kind of stuff. I like to look at it from more of a scientific point of view. Demons and ghouls and goblins. And I mean, this is like, who knows? But even when you do your research on George and Kathy Lutz, and I don't mean just reading about the story they tell, you have to read about people that also know them or knew them or interviewed them or that also have other things to say about them and things like that. Like, you got to look at things from both sides. And I'm not going to say that George and Kathy Lutz were lying, but certainly there is enough circumstantial evidence out there that points to George and Kathy Lutz not really maybe being fully truthful about everything. And you gotta do your dive on it, but you can find it. It's there. And so I don't know. I mean, it makes a good story, I know the idea of, but they just picked up and left after 28 days because they heard crazy stuff. The problem with that, okay, and again, this is circumstantial, okay, but one of the problems with George and Kathy Lutz's story is that they are the only people to have ever lived in the house, to have ever said that. The house has gone through, I don't know how many owners since then. The owner that currently lives in the house now, that's been there for quite some time, says nothing. It's a beautiful house. I've never experienced anything. It's been beautiful. It's great. We have the water and the boat and it's just a nice place. Never experienced a thing. And I don't think she's the owner right after the Lutzes. I think maybe it's gone through several. And as far as I know, from what I can read, nobody's ever claimed any issues. Now, of course, you can go back and you can look at, what's their face from the Conjuring films, right? The two demonologists or whatever. Why am I forgetting their names now? They've been there. They claim that it is this, and they've gone there and they've experienced. It's not that. It's like a what am I trying to say? You have to take these things with a grain of salt. It makes a great movie, it makes a great story, and you can look at it in that respect. And I think, like, personally, I think it's really creepy that a murder like that happened there. The Warrens, thank you, Aaron. I don't know why I was blind. I want to say the Waltons, but that's a whole other 70s television show. The Warrens, thank you. And again, I'm not throwing shade at the Warrens. It's okay to say, I don't know. Too many of us don't say that. We need more people in this world to say, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Are the Warrens telling the truth? I don't know. I have no idea. How could I know? I don't know. Did George and Kathy Lutz actually experience all that? I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe. So, but funny enough, I've always found the real story about Ronald Defeo Jr. And in case you're just joining us, of course, he just died a few days ago at the age of 69. Still don't have a word of death yet, but I'm sure we'll get that. We'll get that soon. There's something about his story that is creepy. The fact that he was able to kill 6 people in their beds without any of them waking up. Because I believe the coroner even determined that they were all dead they were shot in their sleep. That's weird and that's creepy. Did he have help? Did he not have help? You'd think by now it would have come out, but it's still kind of creepy. There's that story that's kind of creepy too. And I know there's an Amityville movie that came out a couple years ago that sort of dives into that. It's garbage. I watched the first half hour of it. This is trash. It's not a good movie. It's not, because it's sensationalized, right? And they obviously, and I get it, they need a narrative. They need an anchor, right? And the anchor is that Defeo Jr. was hearing the voices telling him. So the house is already haunted. It was just Defeo Jr. that, And again, I stand to be corrected on this. But Jason Scott says, Dave, quotes is used in AP style for writing. It's a journalist thing when talking about movies or franchises. Yeah, well, they should figure something else out because, when you put quotes around something, it's like, oh yeah, you're really that person. They should just italicize it or put single quotes around it. Single quotes would be more grammatically correct. I get why they're doing it. It's not lost on me why they're doing it. They're doing it to emphasize it. It's all about emphasizing, well, then bold it, or put single quotes or italicize. Do something else and putting it in quotes, because you could actually look at that and go, oh yeah, the Amityville horror, right? You know what I mean? I just always find that funny. It's not that it's not wrong. It's just I always find it sort of kind of throws me off. They should just do something else. That's nitpicking though. It really is nitpicking. So, but I've always found that story really, really fascinating. The story of Ronald Defeo Jr. and how he was able to pull that murder off and why. How did it escalate so bad that he didn't just kill his father, he killed his entire family. It's not like, it's no secret that he had this relationship with his dad. Like I said, we know this. We know it was awful. We know it was building and building and building. And I could see him murdering his dad. Maybe even his mom. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe even his mom. Maybe he fucking hated his parents. His 2 sisters? His 2 brothers? It's weird. It's creepy. But the Lutz family is the only family, as far as I know, that has, there might have been a family, the Warrens visited the Amityville horror house. And what year was that? Maybe somebody can look that up for me. What year did the Warrens visit the Amityville horror house? And who were the owners there? Maybe somebody can do a quick deep dive for me. Hopefully it's not too deep, and find that out, because I'd like to know what year that was and who those owners were and why the Warrens were even there. But the current owner, I know for sure, who's been there for many years, says, no, there's nothing here. Like, you know, there's nothing. And other people who know the Lutzes have said, yeah, nah, you know. And of course, you know, those things were much easier to fake back in the day. I mean, a lot of those things were very easy to do. You know, we live in a world now where, you know, I had this conversation with, I forget if it was my girlfriend or my buddy Bruce, but we were having this conversation about how, you know, there's no, like, you know, we seem to be out of the era of, there aren't too many things that, like, there's a lot of old stories, whether it's serial killers, whether it's UFO abductions, whether it's Bigfoot, whether it's, you know, murders and things like that, where there's a lot of mystique around certain stories from years and years ago, right? Going all the way back, you know, to Jack the Ripper even, right? There's a lot of mystique surrounding certain stories and events and things like that. And you don't really hear about those kinds of stories anymore, you know? An alien abduction doesn't carry the same mystique as it does, you know, as it did 50 years ago as it does today. Or, you know, somebody murdering their whole family, you know, in their house doesn't carry the same mystique as it does today. And certain stories like that, the mystery and the mystique, right, is no longer there in more modern times. And of course, the reason for that is because of the ease of access to information, you know, and everybody's got a camera in their pocket now, and it's very difficult to create. In order for there to be a mystique around something, there has to be mystery around something. There has to be an unknown factor around something or somebody. As I've said before, and tying it to Halloween, that's one of the reasons why Halloween, the character of Michael Myers, there is a mystique around that character, right? That is why. Because the anchor of him is an unknown factor. You know, that's why the character of Myers, it's why the character of Billy from Black Christmas has a mystique around him, because there's a mystery, there's an unknown factor we don't know. And years ago, the only way that you would get your news at 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock at night in the newspaper the next morning. I mean, you weren't inundated with news every moment of every single day. You weren't watching people like me at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. You weren't sitting there on a device that's called a phone, even though it's really a pocket computer, you know, going every 5 seconds and getting all this mostly nonsense information embedded into your, you know, into your brain. So today, if anything, if there are stories, there are probably stories that when we're first introduced to them do have an aura of mystique about them, but because of the ease of access to information, that mystique is stripped away faster than taking off a baby's diaper, man. I mean, because we can look into everything and know every inch of detail about everything, and so this mystery and mystique is just not there. It's not there like it was years and years ago, where, you know, you only, you know, you only knew what the press told you, you know, and maybe in some book that some lawyer wrote several years later, like, you know, Bugliosi did with Helter Skelter and Manson. I mean, you know, it's the mystique that surrounds. It's not like murders have stopped. It's not like in this day and age nobody murders their entire family. No, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. It's just, we don't hear about it in the same ways anymore. It's not as whoa as it was 50 years ago, because we've been so desensitized. You know, we've been so desensitized. I mean, I'll never forget that I remember about 17 years ago. Oh, Jesus, there's my thing popping up again. That happened the other day on the show too. Why does it happen at this time every day? I don't know. I don't give a fuck about your update. About 17 years ago, I remember it was during when the U.S. invaded Iraq. And I remember I was at a party or a get-together. Again, this is 17 years ago, 2004. 17, yeah. Hard to believe that's 17 years ago now. Anyway, and I remember this guy at this party invited a bunch of people into this room. I don't know if I've told this story or not. And he's like, come here, you gotta check this out. I'm like, oh, what's he gonna show? I said, you gotta check this out. And he brought up, and I don't say this with any sort of, I don't say this lightly because it's horrific. But he brought up a video of somebody being beheaded. And I remember standing there and how I was able to think of this. First of all, I was stunned. I was shocked at what I was seeing. And there's two things that went through my mind. And I'll never forget this. I will never forget this. The first thing was, it's like I knew. The first thing was, I thought, again, not necessarily this compartmentalized, but I remember thinking this. The internet has changed forever. The fact that he can bring something like that up like that is insane. Insane. It's not like he's going through security passwords. No, just beep, there it is. And number two, how Hollywood it looked. But it was real. And it made me realize, and the fact that there's these guys that are sitting there going, holy fuck, whoa, holy shit, whoa. It made me realize how desensitized we are. And then, of course, that sprung now you don't really hear about it anymore. Of course, we're in a different wave now with COVID, but I'm sure you could still find it online somewhere. That sprung this trend for a number of years. And if you're old enough to remember, you might remember this. For about, I don't know, from 2004 to maybe 2010 or something, there were a lot of beheadings happening around the world and a lot of videos circulating of these beheadings. Real beheadings. Like you can watch somebody die. You can watch somebody get their head cut off. And like they're alive. It's insane. But that's where we are. That is where, and that's 17 years ago. That's 17 years ago. That's nearly 2 decades ago. No wonder kids today and everybody's like, they don't care. You can show something in some movie and kids are like, the mystique is gone. It's gone. That kind of thing is gone around that kind of stuff, right? But 50 years ago, it was, wow. There was almost like a, wow, you know, like a disconnect. There was a disconnect, an emotional disconnect from that kind of stuff. We're also in the day and age of 24-hour news. We've been in that day and age for nearly, God. I mean, when did CNN came in the 80s? But the 24-hour news cycle really, I mean, I remember when I was a kid watching the Gulf War in Iraq. That was the first time that war had been like a show, you know, like, are you tuning in? Are you tuning into the war tonight? And then, you know, you look at how, and you know, no, but it's true. You look at how the US media, you know, advertises coverage of that kind of stuff. Like, I'll never forget, you know, tonight on the Gulf War, President George Bush. I think that maybe it's cinematic, and it's still like that. You tune into CNN, it's still like that. It's still COVID-19 next on CNN. You know, and it's like, the fuck? And they all do it. I don't care if it's CNN, Fox, MSNBC, ABC, and they do it up here too. It's not quite as cinematic up here in Canada, but it's still sensationalized. It's still, they'll have like some creepy music, you know, COVID-19, you know, and it's like, the fuck? We're desensitized now, you know, everything's a movie. Everything's so cinematic, you know, and so I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I find it interesting, you know, how we as a society have become so desensitized to so many things that we don't even realize we have become desensitized to. You know, a lot of the mystique and, you know, and I say this in a very good, positive way, the innocent ignorance is gone. The innocence is gone. A lot of the innocence is gone. And sometimes that's good because there's a lot of fucking shit that happens in the world that we should be privy to, that we should know about. Wait a minute here, right? Because we don't want the wool pulled over our eyes all the time. But there are some things in the world where we've been subjected to as just a general, there's no reason why and granted, yes, I mean, you obviously have to go look for it. It's not like the mainstream news is putting up beheading videos. But it's the principle of what I'm talking about. The fact that it's so easy for me, or if I had a 5-year-old kid, to just go, beheading video, click, oh, look. I mean, you know, it's insane. That's insanity. But that's where we are. And that was 17 years ago. So a lot of the mystique of that kind of stuff is gone. The innocent ignorance is gone. And I think that's why now, although it may seem like, you know, there's no like, you know, when you think of Dahmer and Gacy and Manson and Ed Gwynn Gaines, I always get his name wrong. The guy that inspired the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know, and you know, all these, like, there's no like, you know, mystique. No. They're there. They're just, there's serial killers happening all the time. It's just that the mystique is gone. You know, it's not as wow as it was because we're so used to it. You know, it's not 1982. It's not 1975. You know, we're inundated with so much stuff that stuff just gets rolled under the table and sometimes probably doesn't even make the news. You know, it would have to be something really huge in order for it to make the news, you know. But anyway, so it's just interesting to me. And I've always found the real story of Ronald Defeo Jr. also very interesting. But I'm a big fan of the 1979 Amityville horror movie. I think it's a great movie for its time. I think it's a classic within its genre, especially 70s horror. I think it's a great little haunted house movie. It is definitely creepy and eerie. And it's based on the Lutz's experience. But do I believe the Lutz's fully? The jury's still out for me. There's a lot of things, and again, even the Lutz's, like I said at the beginning of the show, even the Lutz's have said there's shit that happens in the Amityville horror that did not happen at all. Like the walls bleeding and the floorboards moving, and like that didn't happen. That didn't happen. There's other things they say that they said in the movie does happen, but it kind of happened like this or whatever, you know? And then I think one of the stories too is that Lutz said something, and I stand to be corrected on this, but I think one of the things that goes against their story is something like when the window came down on his son's hands and he took him to the hospital to get, you know, them, you know, whatever. I stand to be corrected, but I think I remember reading a gentleman who was doing the investigating at the time into the Lutz's story said something like the hospital said there's no record of them ever being here. Like he never brought his son in. You know what I mean? And again, I stand to be corrected on the nuances of the details of that, but that's in the ballpark an example of some of the things that you read about when you do research on people that have investigated the story. You do find discrepancies. You do find things that don't add up with the Lutz's story, you know, where it's kind of like, well, why would you say that if it didn't really happen? You know what I mean? It's so innocuous, you know, I mean, you can, you know, and, you know, it's little things, right? Like maybe the window really did come down and maybe the window did really break his fingers or it came down, you know, but he just didn't take him to the hospital. So the question then becomes, well, why would you lie about that? I'm not saying he did. I recall something to that effect. So then it comes down to the fact of, well, why would you lie about that? And if you can lie about taking him to the hospital when you really didn't, then what else are you lying about? Right? Because it's so innocuous. You just have to say that we didn't take him to the hospital because his fingers were fine, or, we put ice on and it was okay. You don't have to embellish for the sake of entertainment, but people tend to do that because they want to sell their story, right? So sometimes people, some of the best lies in the world and some of the best stories in the world that people are lying about are actually half-truths, right? They tell truth within the lies. So some of the Lutz's experience may very well be true, but a lot of the sensationalism of it may not be. And then it comes down to, well, let's get to the nitty gritty of what you actually experienced. And can we decipher whether this is paranormal or likely not, or how was their marriage at that time? Were they under stress? We know that George, there's a lot of stuff. Right? But it's fascinating to talk about. It's really interesting. I wanted to talk about it today because I have no doubt that this article about George or Ronald Defeo Jr. dying at the age of 69 just seemed to kind of sweep under the rug. I didn't see a lot of people. I think Cinema Blend picked it up, but I don't even know if Bloody Disgusting picked it up or not. They may have. Again, I stand to be corrected. But I saw it in Rolling Stone, and I thought, I'm going to read it. Pretty cool. In the sense of that, another one is gone. Another legend, if I could use that word, in that awful arena is gone. Manson died 3 years ago, I believe it was. Defao Jr. is now dead at the age of 69. Dahmer died in prison. He was beaten to death. Crazy stuff. But fascinating nonetheless. It's a really interesting story. I got to read up on it again because admittedly, again, it's been a number of years, but it's not just George and Kathy Lutz's story that's creepy. Even Defao Jr.'s story is creepy. And it's like, You know what I mean? It's kind of weird, But then at the same time, if I dove a little deeper, I might find some stuff that make more sense. And maybe it's not as weird as I think. Chris Baber says, it's unfortunate they replaced the iconic windows and had to change the street address. Yeah. But that's because people were coming around. Wouldn't leave them alone. And you're right. For those of you that don't know, of course, the Amityville house was iconic for its crescent moon-shaped windows. And they haven't been like that for, 20 years, something like that, maybe even a little longer. It's been a while since those windows were there. They're just now regular rectangular windows, but the owner did that because, and rightly so, I get it. Like, fuck off. This is my house. Like, I get this is that house, but at the same time, I'm the owner. And, and sometimes, you have to remember, folks, and I say this to everybody out there. If you've ever been to Pasadena, California, and you've been to the Strode House, okay, in South Pasadena, California, I've been there many times, and it was really cool. Now, I don't know if they'll ever do it again, but the owners of that house have been the owners of that house for years. And I don't think they were aware that it was one of the Halloween houses when they bought it, but certainly that became very apparent very soon after they bought it. And for many years, for those of you that have been, these owners who are just so nice, they would put on their porch, they would put a little framed picture of some screen grabs from the original Halloween of Laurie sitting on the stoop with, the pumpkin, right? And with a little write-up that said, yes, this is the house from Halloween, blah, blah, blah. And they had pumpkins that would sit there. And a couple of them were real. A couple of them were fake pumpkins. I think they put the real ones out in and around October, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't think they were there year-round because they would rot, obviously. But they would have like 2 or 3 fake pumpkins, 2 or 3 real pumpkins. And there was a little sign that says, feel free to take a pumpkin, go sit on the stoop and get your photo taken. Now that's pretty fucking cool, right? That is pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. They don't do that anymore. You want to know why they don't do it? Because some fucktwat decided to steal the shit from the porch. You're a fucktwat. This is their it doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter if this was Laurie Strode's house 43 years ago. It's a house. And most people who own iconic houses don't even do that. They don't even do it. And they have every right as much as I wouldn't be like that, maybe you wouldn't be like that, okay? But it is their home. And if they want to tell you to get the fuck off their property, it's their right to do so. Now, we all hope that they don't say, get the fuck off my property. But you know what I'm saying. I'm being theatrical to make a point, right? It's their home. It's their house. It's their property. You have to respect that. And the more people that respect it, the more people can go up to it, like treat it like it's the fucking Myers house. Treat it like treat these homes like you would a fucking Myers mask. Treat these homes like they're the hero mask that you have, that you spent $700 to get. They're private residences, people. And it made me sad. And somebody said to me, because I have video on my channel, you can go and find it, where I show you the pumpkin and the photo and all that kind of stuff. And somebody reached out to me, I think it was last year, and said, I was just there and all the pumpkin and the photo and everything were gone. And they said, I guess the house has new owners. And I'm like, oh, that's too bad. And you would think maybe that is true because it's been out there for so many years. No, same owners. They've been there for years. They've been there for decades. No, they just realized that people were stealing shit from their porch. Guys, come on. And what are you stealing? A real pumpkin that's going to rot? No, I still have the fake one. Ooh. Well, come on, man. Like, seriously? You're ruining it for everybody. Now, nobody, unless you bring your own pumpkin, which you can do, but it was really cool to always go there and take the pumpkin from the porch and go sit on the stoop, and then put the pumpkin back. Like, fuck, what are you, 5? You're a fucking idiot. That's what you are. You're a fucking idiot. You are. I have no time for that bullshit. And it's not somebody who's 10. It's some, horror dude in his 40s taking it. And it's like, dude, like, seriously? Pisses me off because now you've ruined it for everybody. So not every, and the fact that they even did that should give them the utmost respect. You think the Amityville horror people are doing that? Come on in, get your photo taken. No. You think the Myers house is doing that? No. They have a big sign on their front door that says, stay off the fucking porch. It doesn't say stay off the fucking porch, but that's what it says. And I understand it. It's a business now. It's not even a private home. It's a place of business, and they don't want a lot of people crowding around. But even the Myers house does some cool, which is a private business. I think it's like a real estate or insurance office in there now. There's a couple of things in there. Even they at Halloween time will like put up lights and show like little lights for the house. It's cool. They know. But there's a little sign on the front door that says, if you wouldn't mind, don't crowd the porch. Don't come up onto the porch and crowd around. Just kind of take it from afar. They don't mind if you take photos, just kind of, off on the ground. That's cool. Respect it. But you want to know what happened? Or you want to know what would happen if people didn't respect that and people kept crowding the porch? They'd fucking put a fence around it. They'd put a fucking fence around the Myers home, or they'd have a 24-hour security guard there, or at least a 9 to 5 security guard. And you just fucking ruin it for everybody, man. You do. You ruin it for everybody. How cool was that? That the people that lived in the Strode house actually helped the fans. I remember speaking to the lady. I was there by myself when I went to the 40th anniversary convention. If you guys have been following me since then, you might remember. I did a live stream from there. And when I was done the live stream, I saw she came out. And she was like, oh, hi, how are you? And I was like, oh, hi. And she's like, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, Toronto, Canada. She's like, oh, Toronto, Canada, blah, blah. Very nice lady. I'm going to go steal all the pumpkins. You're a fucking idiot, whoever you are. Fucking pisses me off. Because now you've just ruined it for everybody. Anyway. What do we got here? There's a super chat that came in. I want to get that super chat. Here it is from The Boogeyman is Coming. Says, Dave, how can more diverse and inclusive movies be made without triggering the stop shoving your liberal propaganda down my throat crowd? Seems like everyone finds issues with anything these days. Well, this is the reason why, Boogeyman, is because there's very little nuance in people. And hear me out. This is absolutely true. And I'll use the example that I gave the other day. in regards to the It's Me, Billy teaser trailer that we released on Christmas Eve. There's a line in the It's Me, Billy teaser trailer where our wonderful actress Shelby, who plays Emma, says the line, "You're strong like your grandma." And this person interpreted that as, oh, pushing female feminism, strong, strength. This is a problem. And I'll tell you why it's a problem. Because that tells me that this individual, whenever they hear the word strong in relation to female, automatically has that association. That's a black and white, night and day, 0 to 100 reaction. But in reality, if you stop to think for a moment about the character of her grandmother, Jess Bradford, if you're familiar with the original Black Christmas, if you do your due diligence and your research, and you understand how it's being used, you understand, oh, I get it. She's strong like her grandma. Like saying you're strong like your dad, you know, because your dad happened to be a really strong guy, you know, like emotionally independent, that kind of thing. Jess Bradford was incredibly strong and independent. That's what it means. But the fact that they can take it to mean that is too hypersensitive. It's too hypersensitive. So the problem is not that Hollywood, which they are on occasion, trying to push certain things, for sure, 100%. But not everything that has to do with a female lead or putting a woman in this role or that role has to do with that. It's not black and white like that. But there are too many hypersensitive, angry individuals that the second they see a woman cast in something, automatically go from 0 to 100. And it's like, holy fuck, calm the fuck down. It doesn't mean that. And these usually are angry people that don't have a lot of outlets, that use the internet to yell and scream and create fake accounts so their friends don't know that it's them yelling and screaming. That happens all the time. It's hilarious. So, you know, first of all, to your point, or to your question, I should say, fans need to, take a breath, relax, and look at what you're yelling and screaming about. What is it that's going on? What is the story? Why is this person being cast? It doesn't there are. You know it. You know it. The second a woman is cast in anything now, it's like, shut up. Do you know what the fuck you're talking about? Do you know why? I'm a liberal goddamn Hollywood. I'm not saying that there isn't, that part of Hollywood doesn't exist. Of course it exists. Of course it does. But not everything is about that. And we need to stop going from 0 to 100 like this. Hang on. I got to take care of myself. Emma, I don't want to end up like her. You're not like her. You're strong, like your grandma. There we go. Dave's pushing liberal strength Hollywood bullshit. The fuck is up? Are you okay? The hell is wrong with people? It's crazy. It's crazy. You're losing your mind. You're losing your mind. That you can take that to mean this. We really got to take a step back here. Take a deep breath. Because people are losing it. They're losing it. They're losing it. The other thing that Hollywood can do, if they don't want people to get so angry, but they don't care about that. See, people don't care about that. And sometimes people have to understand, too, that this is manufactured, too. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that, you know, that hate back and forth. You know, it's on purpose, right? What I like to see are stories that are organic, that stories that are, because the best way to tell stories is never to hit your audience over the head. You have to treat your audience like the intelligent people we hope they are. And you want to be able to, if your film has a political message, or if you want to be able to have a message in your movie, I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I really don't. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. But I'm the kind of person that doesn't like to be preached to. I don't like to be spoken to in a condescending manner. I mean, in a real condescending manner. I know I've been accused of being condescending on this channel, but that's because I'm theatrical and I can get loud and, my animated and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, like, literally speaking condescending, like literally, coddling you, right? And that's what Black Christmas 2019 did. And I didn't like that. And there's a lot of women that love that movie, but like I said many times, there's a lot of women that were turned off by that, because strong, independent women don't, and most people don't like to be preached to condescendingly, like as if, we're 3 bricks shy of load, like we don't know what we're doing, and it's like, you can tell, and then any great message you may have had gets lost in translation, like I say all the time. So Black Christmas 2019 was not a movie with a political message. It was a political message with a movie attached to it. And that rubs me the wrong way. And it doesn't matter if it's about that or whatever political message it is. If it becomes very apparent that you are shoving it at me, I don't like it. Even if I agree with it. I want to discover it myself. I want to think for myself. I want it to be presented to me in a way that makes me think and go, not presenting the answer, present the question. Don't present the answer, present the question. I think those are better suited, crafted stories, because your audience doesn't feel, attacked, or a segment of your audience. You get more people on board, you get more people thinking and discussing the right topics, discussing it in the right ways. Do you know what I mean? So nobody's fighting over well, there's always going to be somebody, but you lessen the probability of people fighting over how angry they are at the movie, and now they're discussing and debating over what the movie's message could be, right? The subliminal message, the more nuanced kind of thing. I like subtext. I like when messages are presented in subtext, or not so in your face and hammering you over the head and things like that. And unfortunately, we are living in an age now where that's becoming more and more common. It's not my style, but I think that's what personally, I think that's what I would like to see more of that. I think you can deliver a terrific movie about equality and about diversity that doesn't feel like you are hammering it down somebody's throat. I really do believe that. I do. And like I said, at the end of the day, if you are continuing to alienate a large portion of angry people, which they don't care, but if you do that, then things get lost in translation. And like I said, there's a lot of women out there that would agree with me. A lot of women that want to feel empowered, or, sure, I'm all for that. It's amazing. That's awesome. But it's got to be done not on the coattails of things. Like, I don't think there should be a female James Bond. I don't think there should be a female Indiana Jones. I don't think there should be a female, Terminator, or a female, whatever the case is. Because then if it is successful, well, is it successful because everybody bought into it, or is it successful because you're riding on the coattails of a proven successful IP? And then there's always going to be that debate. And I think it's how you lift people up is you give them the opportunities, right, to thrive, and then it becomes more pure and more awesome, and more, and and again, and people use the example of Ripley from Alien or Sarah Connor from Terminator as two great examples of way back in the day. And it's true. It's true. I mean, Ripley wasn't a, female version of somebody in an alien. No, she was her own. That was it. She was just fucking badass. You know what I mean? So I think, I mean, maybe I'm old school, I mean, I understand I'm in my 40s and I'm not the younger, generation coming up, which a lot of these films are targeted towards. I understand that. I respect that. But I always feel that that's how you do it, is you give people the opportunities to thrive, all the right tools, the same tools to thrive. And then they thrive and they die based on that, right? And then there's no like, oh, but if only they had this or this or this or this. No, it is, it is what it is. And I mean, I love watching movies with strong females. Love, it's badass, man. It's fucking great. 100%. But it's got to be done in the right ways. It's got to be done in the right ways. And I think as long as we do it in the right ways, then I think people will, I think it will continue to succeed, but the Black Christmas 19 film was a movie that definitely rubbed a lot of women the wrong way too. Like, why are you talking to me like I'm dumb? You know what I mean? Like I know this. I don't need to, let's do something, Anyway, that's how I feel, man. So it's a combination of a couple things. I think people need to fucking calm their tits, as the saying goes, and not think that just because you hear the word strong coming out of a female's mouth doesn't, like, guys, come on here. Like, have we lost all common sense? Are we just insane now? Like, I mean, seriously, right? Now, I haven't seen Wrong Turn, the new one, but I did watch Cody Leach's review on it. And apparently there's a gay couple, male gay couple in that movie. And Cody Leach said, and he got attacked. There's people saying, oh, it's a woke movie and there's a gay couple in there. And he's like, it's just a gay couple. It's not like it's about the gay couple. It's not like they're making out and they're forcing you to feel uncomfortable because maybe you don't want to watch two dudes making out or something, or whatever the case is. I don't know, whatever tickles your fancy or what doesn't. It's just a gay couple that happened to be in the movie. And if that's true, and which I haven't seen the movie, and people are like, this is the problem. Right? You can't, it's 0 to 100, night and day, black and white. There's no nuance anymore. There's no context. It's just, oh, gay couple in movie, woke movie, fuck you. It's like, are you kidding me, guys? Calm down. Really? Really? Like, seriously? And this is a problem too. This is a problem too. Yes, there's a problem. I agree. I do agree that there's an issue in Hollywood that I think is a little preachy, a little condescending. Yes, 100%. But there's also a segment of the population that is fucking losing their minds over everything too, and they don't instill common sense or nuance. Those people exist as well. And I think it's like, hang on a sec. Can we come back to the middle, please? Okay, can we please? Can we come back to the middle and talk about this? That's how I feel about it. Thank you for your question. Kevin Boren says, hey, Dave, do you think had Michael J. Fox not gotten his illness, that sucks, that the Back to the Future producers would have given into a sequel money and made another? Ooh, that's a great question, man. That's a good one, Kevin. I would say that... I'm going to say yes. I think if Michael J. Fox had not gotten Parkinson's disease, which he's had for many years now, it's very sad. And I have experience with that because my grandfather, my mom's dad, died. He died in the late 90s, 99, I think, of Parkinson's. And I remember watching him as a teenager, and the shaking and all that kind of stuff. And it's sad. It's such an awful disease. So it's in my family. Obviously, I'm hoping, hope I don't get it. So it's awful. But I would say that I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. Yep. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say that they would have, or at least there would have been serious talk. How could you not? In this day and age, because I think, too, one of the reasons why, well, like you just said, I mean, it's never really been on the table. Now, would Bob Zemeckis and would they have? I don't know. Robert Zemeckis, he's a smart dude. I think that I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes to high consideration. Because with Michael J. Fox would also have been continuing to make movies or TV shows. Like if he hadn't gotten sick, he'd be in his 50s, like he is, or in his 60s. Hey, Google, How old is Michael J. Fox? Maybe he's 60.
59 years old.
59, okay. I think he would have, because he would have continued to make movies, TV shows. He would have been out there. You could bring back him, Christopher Lloyd, much older, Emma Thompson. Yeah. I don't know though. I don't know because like I said, I could see Bob Gale wanting to do it. I think it's Bob Gale, right? He's one of the producers. I think I could see him going, come on, Robert. But Robert Zemeckis not wanting to do it. I could see Robert Zemeckis, even if Michael J. Fox was okay, I could see Robert Zemeckis being the one that is holding out. Because he seems like a pretty smart dude. But definitely a higher probability that there could be one. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been off the table for years because he's been so sick, and because Robert Zemeckis likes it as a trilogy, and he's like, nobody's ever going to make another one until I'm dead, and so he's been saying that for years too. But I think it's accented, and how can it not be? How can it not be accented by the fact that your star can't do it, and nobody wants to see him in the role like that, with all due respect, of course. And he doesn't want to do it like that either, I don't think. You know what I mean? It can't. You just can't. You can't. So, yeah. Great question, though. Great question. I don't think I had. Did I have anything super chat? Oh, I did. Daniel Hirel. I think I almost think I'm butchering that. Dave, have you ever seen Halloween 1978? And if so, what are your thoughts? God bless my man. Halloween 1978. Halloween 1978. I don't think I've ever seen Halloween 1978. Halloween. What is this Halloween you guys speak of? I don't recall. Darren Sands, my man, says part 3 hasn't stood the test of time, and so I'm guessing they would have made a part 4 if Michael J. Fox hadn't gotten ill. And you could be right, man. You could be right. There is no doubt that you're right. Back to the Future Part 3 is sort of the black sheep of the trilogy. It's not a bad movie. Like, I watched it again a few years ago when I was watching all 3 with my girlfriend because she had never seen them. So I was catching her up on some awesome, pop culture nostalgia. And Part 3 is it's good. Like, it's fine. It's serviceable. It's the same characters and it's fun. But you're right. It doesn't have it's just sort of not, it's kind of like it's not, but it's like how I feel about the Dark Knight. You got Batman Begins. Yeah. You got Dark Knight. All right. And then Dark Knight Rises. It's like, yeah, okay. It's kind of like the Back to the Future trilogy in some ways. It's not a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's good. It's entertaining. It's fun, but you're right. It's over time, it's not talked about a lot. You know what I mean? It's more about the first one and the second one. And I know Crispin Glover, and rightly so, he was gypped. If you know the Crispin Glover story when it comes to Back to the Future, absolutely 100%. But I adore Back to the Future too, as well. I think it's fun. I think it's because it's very similar to the first one, but it's like Back to the Future, but on steroids. You know what I mean? It's still a good movie, but you're right. Maybe Darren. That's why I said maybe they would, and especially there would have been a lot of push. There would have been a lot of push from fans because fans know. I mean, Michael J. Fox. There would have been that. There would have been the studio. There would have been Bob Gale. There would have been a lot of like, come on, maybe we need to. I'm telling you, man. People our age would have lost their shit. I mean, people who were like, 15 would have been like, what the fuck's going on? But it would have been amazing. And certainly there would have been a market for it. And if Robert Zemeckis directed it and Bob Gale produced and Michael J. Fox came back and everybody was back in the saddle again, maybe. But I think if it was going to come out, I don't know if now would be the good time. Even if Michael J. Fox was fine. Do you know what I mean? Like a Back to the Future 4's real prime market would have been in the 90s, like late 90s, maybe early 2000s for like or maybe like 2005 for like the 30th anniversary or something, or excuse me, the 20th anniversary, maybe something like that. 2021 or 2025 for the 40th anniversary. I don't know, but I agree with you. David Lee Barron sends in a $4.99 super chat, says, Dear Dr. Piche, thank you. What software do you use to write your screenplays? I was thinking of getting Final Draft. What do you recommend? Final Draft is a great software. I use Movie Magic Screenwriter, and I've used it for years, like probably nearly 20 years. But Final Draft is good. Final Draft is good. David Lee Barron follows up with, Dear Mr. Martini Without the Woman. I love it. I'm rewatching The Wonder Years. Oh, what would you do if I sang out of tune? I really love it. What are your thoughts on that series? Oh, I love it. I love The Wonder Years. Fred Savage. It's great. It's great. Now, I haven't watched it in many years. That's a show I should probably get. I'd love to get that show, so I own it. Again, I'm a physical media kind of guy. But I love it. Yeah. I actually remember watching the series finale when the show ended, because I think the show went from 88 to 94. 88 to 94, I think. I think it was 88 to 94. 6 seasons, maybe. I remember watching the series finale on TV when it aired, and it was a big deal. I love The Wonder Years. I thought it was great. Mike Johnson says, I remember watching Back to the Future 2 in the theater with my older brother and his friend. It was awesome seeing it in the theater. I saw the original Back to the Future in 1985 at the drive-in. Now, I was 6 years old, so I don't remember much, but I do remember it. I do remember it. And I remember the previous year watching Gremlins at the drive-in as well in 1984, because I think Gremlins was 84, right? I remember watching that at the drive-in as well. So that was fun. But that's cool. Back to the Future 2. I don't think I saw Back to the Future 2 at the theater. Back to the Future 2 was 89. Back to the Future 3 was 90. I don't think I saw Back to the Future 2 in the theater. Why wouldn't I? It's weird. I saw Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade in the theater, though. And because that came out on my 10th birthday. So that was kind of cool. Gary Rangel sends in a $5 super chat, says, Dave, sorry, been working like hell, but you always said you are a theater of the mind guy. I am. But do you have a favorite on-screen Halloween franchise kill? Oh, sure. My favorite on-screen franchise Halloween kill. It's probably going to be a toss-up between, of course, I'm going to go old school, so I go back to the original or Halloween 2. I mean, it's no secret that I love when what's her face there? The nurse gets the syringe in the temple. Love that in Halloween 2. Because, and I've said it many times on this channel, because it's the most Halloween 1 moment in Halloween 2. That's probably why I like it so much. And the way that she's backing up, and then Dick Warlock as Myers, his face slowly emerges from the dark. I mean, it's fucking amazing. It is an amazing shot. It's still to this day, I think, one of the best reveals of Michael Myers of all time. Any movie, period. It's fantastic. And I think because largely Halloween 2 is not like Halloween 1. I mean, even though you have Dean Cundy as the director of photography, in terms of the directing style and the execution, it's very different from Halloween 1. We're seeing more. Of course, those are conscious, creative choices. We're seeing more. We need to see more blood, more gore, things like that, more intensity. But Janet, that's right. Why I wanted to say Jennifer. Janet. Sorry, it's been busy. Yeah, I love it. It's a great kill. It's a great on-screen kill. I love that. And then another great on-screen kill would be, I think the kill with Linda is great as well. When she gets on the phone and Michael comes up behind her and strangles her with the phone cord, and then he lifts his head up and he's on the phone. And that's the first time. That is the first time we see the Myers mask clearly in close proximity. That's the first time, not the first time we see the Myers mask, but it's the first time we see the Myers mask that close up clearly. That close proximity, very clear. We do see it through the windshield when he's killing Annie, but the windshield is fogged up, which was great. What a great creative decision. Let's fog up the windshield. It makes sense when somebody's been in the car breathing, right? I mean, just park in a parking lot, turn off your car and have a conversation, or just, I mean, obviously it would probably take a lot longer than what it took in the movie, but there's been many times where I've sat in the parking lot in a car with my girlfriend, we're having a conversation or whatever, because we're having some lunch or whatever, and then the windows begin to fog up, right? That's what was happening because of Myers. Probably would have taken a lot longer than what it did in the movie, but again, cool effect. And then it also, that's what would happen, so that makes sense, but it also allows you to then obscure Myers through I believe it's through the side, actually. Through the side, you see him, and he's kind of blurry a little bit. You're like, oh, you get the essence of him, So Annie's kill is really cool as well. I'd say Annie, Linda, and Janet are probably my favorite on-screen kills. And then if you want to get a little more sensational, well, I mean, what's her face? Meeker's daughter with the shotgun through her fucking stomach into the wall. That's pretty cool. You know what I mean? That's pretty cool. And we'll see what Halloween Kills delivers. We shall see. David Lee Barron sends in a $4.99 super chat, says, remember the days when the playgrounds had tether ball sets? I do. I miss them so much. Old things I miss and appreciate more these days. Dude, I remember my elementary school in the 80s had stones as, not big stones, but little tiny stones, as, how some playgrounds will have like sand or, even grass or whatever. We had little stones, little tiny stones that I remember taking a cup of when I went back in my 20s because it was still there. And I don't know whatever happened to that cup. It's gone. It's too bad. And now the playgrounds don't have that. I don't even think playgrounds have that because, and people are getting hurt. You got to protect your children. It's like, oh, for fuck's sakes. We really are becoming a coddling society. It's just insane. I used to leap off the fucking play structure and land in a pile of stones and love it. But yes, I do remember the tetherball. I do. Jurassic Production sends in a $4.99 super chat. Thank you, Jurassic. Says, hey, Dave, finally a question related to my name. So here we go. All right. What do you think of the Jurassic franchise, including Dominion coming in 2022? Well, I'm going to shock you, Jurassic Productions, because I have only seen the first 3 Jurassic Park movies. I have not seen Jurassic World, and I have not seen Jurassic World 2, whatever that one was called. And of course, I haven't seen Dominion because it's coming next year. I just never got around to watching it. I think, I don't know why. I know I would be very entertained by the Jurassic World films. I just never got around to seeing them. It's just like, you have an intention of watching it and then it escapes you and you just haven't watched it. So I haven't seen them. I do, I like the idea that the band is back together again and you got, you got most of the returning cast from the original film back. So that's kind of cool because apparently this is supposed to be the last in the franchise, certainly the last in this series run at the very least. So I'm looking forward to that. I'll have to watch the other 2, although I probably don't have to, but I'll likely watch the other 2 Jurassic World films before I see Dominion because I would like to see it. And sort of, bask in the nostalgia of these returning characters. But I was a big fan, of course, who wasn't, of the original Jurassic Park. Monumental, game-changing. It changed the industry in terms of what you can do with computer-generated effects. It was the film that made Lucas realize that he could now go back and do the Star Wars prequels. That's something he said for years. Big fan of the first movie. The second Jurassic Park, of course, which was directed by Steven Spielberg as well. Admittedly, The Lost World is a movie I haven't seen in a while because I didn't really like it as much. I want to go back and watch it again and see how it's aged and see how I feel. But I did see Jurassic Park 3 in the theater in 2001, and I actually liked that movie. I don't think it's as good as the first movie, but I remember liking it better than the Lost World, and maybe it was because I had Sam Neill back in it, right? So, you have that connection to the original. And I know the second movie had Jeff Goldblum and whatnot, but yeah, I don't know. I'd say I like them. I mean, I don't hate The Lost World or anything, so I like them. I just haven't gotten around to see the new ones yet. But Dominion will be interesting to see how they wrap it all up and how they bring it home. And, it'll be fascinating to see. All right, what do we got here? Robert Kitzmiller says, theaters just opened back up in our town, Dave. Fly your ass to California and Godzilla vs. Kong tickets are on me, buddy. Oh, if I could fly to California, I would. The borders are closed. Well, you can fly, but there's a travel restriction, and I would have to quarantine when I got there anyway. So, and then I have to quarantine when I get back at my own expense. Can you believe that? Yeah, that sucks. Simon, Evil Alex says, Dave, cover this in the most recent Two Dudes episode. In the later stages, if Dave doesn't get a chance to answer your question, buddy. Oh, Evil Alex asked a question. What was it, Evil? Evil Alex says, did you hear about the Annie theory? Oh, I did. I did hear about that. Yeah, and you're right. I did talk about that on Two Dudes. Yeah, no. And the crazy thing is that it surprised me that this is a theory that's caught up, because I've talked about this. I forget what video it was, but I talked about it. No. I understand the connections they're making, but Michael is chasing Lori. Jack Carter, thank you, Darren, for letting me know about Jack Carter. What OS do you use for your computer? What's your specs? Well, I'm on a PC, so I'm running Windows Home Professional, I believe. My computer is, let me see here. What do I got? I can bring it up, actually. One moment. I can bring up the specs. The specs of my computer. So, Windows 10 Professional. I'm the Intel Core i7 10700K CPU at 3.8 gigahertz. I have the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3080, the 3080 graphics card, 32 gigabytes of memory. So it's the Aurora Alienware, the R11, I'm not a gamer. It's not why I have an Alienware computer. It's because I do a lot of video and audio editing. So I need the specs to do that. So I do have a beast of a machine. There is no doubt about that. That is what I'm running. Yeah. So 32 gigs of RAM, the i7 10700K processor. And I know there's the i9 now, I think too, but it's a beast of a processor. And then of course the RTX 3080, and I know there's the 3090 now, but the 3080 is a beast of a graphics card. So those are my specs. I hope that helps, Jack. Hope that helps. Let's see here. What do we got? Robert Thedoff says, Dave, if Michael J. Fox didn't do Back to the Future of these three, who would you choose at the time for Marty McFly? Oh, Patrick Dempsey, Jason Bateman, or Zach Galligan. Oh, I see. He would have been pretty good. I would have chosen him. I wouldn't have chosen the other two. Jason Bateman's too much of the preppy guy. Too much of a preppy guy. You need a guy who's more, at that time, who would have been more kind of nerdier, but sweet. Jason Bateman was too preppy, I think. And that's why he's always ended up playing those roles. You know what I mean? That's who I would have chosen. Yeah, that's actually that's a good question. That's a good question. Nate A says, Dave has a gaming rig. I do, but it's because of the power, right? When you do a lot of, video editing and audio editing like I do, you need that level of processing power. When you're working on file sizes that are, gigabytes big, you need a lot of processing power and a graphics card that's able to handle all that as well. So a lot of video, I've been in studios where most studios have Macs, but the ones that I've been in that do have PCs, I've seen a couple of Alienwares. I've seen a couple because of the specs, because they're you can get a PC and that's built to the nines, as they say, and which is great for like 4K and 6K and 8K and 8K. So fucking stupid. The whole idea, they're going to have 8K, it's going to be awesome. No, it's going to make everybody look dead. 8K is not going to be very flattering to women, I can tell you that. You're going to see every pore and every wrinkle on a woman's face if we go to 8K. I'm telling you, you're going to see every pore and wrinkle on your face if you go to 8K. It's not, I was talking about this with our DP the other day, and he's like, even our own eyes don't even see in 8K. So it's like, why are we, what's the point? What's the point? You know what I mean? Like, it's just so, yeah, it's not, I don't even care. Like, it's so, you know, and then we're going to go to 32K, and then we'll go to 9,000K, and everybody's going to be like, oh, everyone's going to look like the Crypt Keeper. It's insane. I think we need to kind of just, whoa, take it back a little bit. And just, you know, we want to flatter our actors as well. We don't want to, you know, hey, look, don't they look ancient under this light? Anyway, crazy. Eric Stoltz. Yeah, no, I wouldn't have chosen Eric Stoltz. I wouldn't have chosen Eric Stoltz. Thunderknock Studios, my man, JP DeStefano. How you doing, my man? Says, Dave, are you editing It's Me, Billy on your PC? I am. Oh, yes. Yep, absolutely. Here in my home studio, decked out to do so. All the sound design is being done here as well. So it is being done here. Yep, I have a professional home studio, so I can mix and master full-length feature films if I need to. And that's what we're doing. So we're doing it here, and of course it saves on cost because, you know, as I'm sure you know, to do that in a studio downtown would you know, you got to pay for that, right? You got to pay for the engineer, you got to pay by the hour. So yes, it would definitely take a lot of money. So no, we're gonna do it here because we know how to do it. I know how to do it. I've been doing it for years, so that's what we're doing, and it's looking good. Great to see you, Thunderknock. It's been a while, my man. Hope you're doing well. Don't forget to check out his Halloween fan film, by the way, Halloween Night, currently on YouTube and approaching 1 million views, if I'm not mistaken. Rock on, buddy. It's fucking awesome. I love it. Troy Grubb says, how you doing, Dave? Doing good, Troy. DMT Infinity says, Dave, why is it that despite the high demand for sequels to movies like Monsters, Inc., really? There's a high demand for another sequel to Monsters, Inc. and Finding Dory, places like Disney and Pixar still aren't on those projects despite the money they would make? Well, I think you have to remember too that there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, you got to have a good story. Number two, it takes years to create an animated film. Years. Now, obviously, it doesn't take as long as it did years ago. But, you know, I mean, to create an animated full-length feature film of that caliber, you could start that today, right? You could start development on a full-length, feature-length, like a full-length feature film, animated, Pixar quality, like a Pixar film, right now, development, 2021. And that thing wouldn't hit theaters till 2026. Seriously. Like, it can take that long. You know, it's not like live action feature films that can also take long as well, depending on, you know, what's all involved. But it's a lot of work and a lot of time and takes years to get things going. So when you see an animated movie, like whatever animated film is coming out this year, they've been working on that for probably the last 5 or 6 years. So it takes a long time from, you know, coming up with an idea to actually so yeah, that's one thing too. You know, you can't just do it. You know, you can't just say, hey, we're going to move into development this year on an animated film and early next year it's coming out. No, that's not how it works. Although that window is continuing to shrink though, which is a good sign. And then, you know, I mean, there's probably just other animated stuff they want to do. You know, there's just other stories they want to tell, create other characters as well. I mean, that's a possibility as well. But I think there was and they have to look at, like, you know, when you look at and I don't know this off the top of my head, but did Monsters University make as much as Monsters, Inc.? What's the demand for it? Are people really wanting another Monsters, Inc. movie? Do people really want another Finding Dory film? Because there was Finding Nemo, there's Finding Dory. I mean, you know, are we going to get a Frozen 3? Did Frozen 2 do as well? Or are you naturally seeing the decline, right? So there's that as well, right? And it costs a lot of money. I mean, animated films can cost just as much as full-length Marvel movies. An animated film can cost like $150 million. You know, again, depending on the studio, depending on the film, depending on the actors that are involved, you know, there's a lot that goes into it. Marketing, there's a lot. So I just think that at the end of the day, there's those things that they take into consideration, and there's other stories that they want to tell as well. All right, we got. I'm over time. I'm over time. All right, I'll go for like just another minute here, but I am over time. Did I get all the super chats? I believe I did get all the super chats, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I got it. Thunder Knock Studios, awesome stuff. Nice to hear from you, man. Appreciate the shout out. Yeah, no worries at all. No worries at all, man. JP DeStefano made a great Halloween fan film, of course, called Halloween Night, which is really darn cool, if I do say so myself. So make sure you guys check it out on YouTube if you haven't. But with nearly 1 million views, there's a lot of people checking it out. Mike Johnson, Eric Stoltz is a fantastic actor, but I am glad Michael J. Fox got the part instead. Yeah, I mean, sometimes people are just not right for the part. You know, and that became very apparent very early on that Eric Stoltz, although he's a great actor, just wasn't quite the right kind of actor for this role. And those things happen. Those things definitely do happen. All right, folks, listen, that's going to do it for me for episode 152 of McRae Live. Thank you to my great moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Shore, Darren Sands, and Chris Baber. Thank you for doing what you guys do. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the Super Chat questions that came in today, the non-Super Chat questions, of course. And comment below and let me know your thoughts on Ronald Defeo Jr. dead at the age of 69. Tell me your thoughts on the Amityville horror. Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? In the comment section below, start a conversation. What do you believe about it? What don't you believe about it? Are there things you do believe? Are there things you don't believe? Have you ever been to the real house? Have you ever been? Tell me your story below in the comment section. I would love to know. If you want to follow me on Facebook, you can at facebook.com/manythingsdavemccrae. That's where I tend to post in the meantime and in between time when I'm not posting here. All my links are in the description, folks. Check them out until your heart's content. And when your heart is content, check them out again. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and I will talk to you guys soon. Alrighty, cheers.